HM Productions presents White Devil Podcast.
Hi everybody, this is TheHande Mäkinen again, and welcome to yet another White Devil minicast in the wake of yet another He-Man video. And again, I'm doing another one of these. If people haven't listened to it, let's go. Before I've talked a little bit about He-Man and the He-Man videos, why I do them, all that stuff. We did a whole episode of that in an actual White Devil podcast long ago with Dorupka. That's on YouTube. And the White Devil minicast number 2 was all about the He canon. I'm not going to be delving into the He canon so much in this White Devil minicast. Today, I'm basically just going a little bit more in-depth on the episodes which I covered, which were the last 5 episodes of He-Man's first season. I'm going to talk a little bit about why I chose to review these 5 episodes together, and maybe talk a little bit more in-depth about the episodes themselves. So that's going to be interesting. And I actually, this was a weird kind of stab in the dark kind of video in that I hadn't really firmly planned ever to do just the 5 last episodes. It's something that just kind of over time evolved kind of organically as a result of a bunch of other reasons why I chose to do this video. So on one hand, this was, if people are curious, was this a way by me to kind of knock a lot of old He-Man episode reviews out of the park that have been in the making for a long while? Yes, it was. The episodes specifically that I've been planning to review for a very, very long time and never really gotten up to. Well, first of all, The Heart of a Giant. I think that was an obvious one. The Huntsman was also very, very long in the tooth. Ever since I did the top 10 He-Man episodes list during the very first He-Man episode review series that I did back in 2012. It's been in the making for a very long time. I never ever just seemed to get around to reviewing the episode, even though it was a good episode, and because it got an honorable mention. It's always like when I did the bottom 10s, it was always really easy to just pick those episodes because there was always something interesting to talk about. If nothing else, it was going to be pretty funny. So I felt kind of bad about that. And the most recent addition to this group of episodes that have been very long, where the reviews have been very long in the making, is Golden Discs of Knowledge, which I think since 2015, possibly a little earlier than that, but at least 2015, I can say with some certainty, I've been planning to review this episode, because I've been kind of half-heartedly contemplating doing a whole big Zodak episodes compilation. Zodak the Cosmic Guardian, who first appears in The Search for He-Man, The Quest for He-Man, which is, of course, the episode that had Plunder the Spoiler, one of my all-time favorite one-off He-Man villains, a big, muscular purple rabbit. And that's when we first get introduced to Zodak. He has another episode appearance during the first season, which is The Search, and then the third and final one, which is the Golden Discs of Knowledge. And Golden Discs of Knowledge, it's an episode that I kind of forgot about, and people can probably understand why I kind of forgot about it, because the final end theme, which I feel kind of bad about because I lumped Huntsman together with all these other episodes, was the fact that I ended up making a kind of general video about the end of season 1. So let's talk about this. What was the main motivation for this? What finally was the thing that pushed it? So I had these 3 episodes that I've been planning to review. Heart of a Giant, obviously, because it's a kind of precursor. It's a kind of prototype for the episode that would eventually become Monster on the Mountain. Even more so because Herman, aka the Tingler, is of course the character, is the giant from this episode, which is interesting because he's clearly voiced by John Irwin in this episode. So it's He-Man's voice actor who did the voice for the monster. So that was one of the reasons I wanted to review it. The other reason was, of course, the Sulkweed. I have been planning that fucking Sulkweed voice clip compilation since 2012. At some point, I have been thinking about doing it. At some point, but because the second season was all about He-Man, because the second review series was all about the second season of He-Man, and because in the third season reviews on the look back reviews, I thought I really need to look at more significant episodes. So that's why it kept getting pushed away and further away. The Huntsman, obviously, like I said already, and the Gold District Knowledge. That's the most recent that I've been added here. But like I said, the big problem with it, and with the Pawns of the Game Master and the Remedy, I've been looking at the Pawns of the Game Master for a long time as well, and I always keep remembering, oh yeah, it's that episode with that guy with the frickin' dopey-looking helmet. that's kind of and I always, whenever I start to think about it, then I watch the episode and I think, nah, this isn't interesting enough. Even though it's a Paul Dini script, like that's kind of the rub of it, I suppose, is that I've been contemplating it for a really long time and I never get around to doing it. So independently, I've been thinking of doing review videos of all these 3 episodes. And then independently, I've been thinking about, I need to address a general kind of issue that I've always had with the He-Man reviews, and why, maybe why I'm so reluctant to review episodes from the end of Season 1 and the beginning of Season 2. Because the thing is, with any television show, now we're finally getting to the topic, sorry, it took me forever. With any episode, with any series, there is kind of a quality curvature. And generally how it goes, not always, this is a general view. Generally, the way it goes is that maybe the first season is a little rough, but a lot of series, in my experience, are usually kind of good during the first season. Maybe not excellent, but by the second season, you have the established format and formula to go on, and then the third season, the first 3 seasons usually is when, those are the seasons that people usually remember the fondest. And then season 4, usually you start a little bit of a dip. And then it can go up and down all around, it's very different for different seasons. I hate doing generalizations like those because I don't always necessarily agree with people's opinions on where the peak of a show is or where the end of a show is. And for a show like He-Man, it might be thinking, well, that's kind of difficult to, that kind of limits it down. There's only 2 seasons. But there are 2 seasons of 65 episodes. So that's a lot of episodes per season. And so the quality curvature for He-Man, for me, it looks like I said, the first 30 episodes, maybe going to maybe like the first 40 episodes of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. Generally speaking, you can take any one of those episodes, and it's going to be good. The last 30 episodes of the second season, roughly, you take an episode from there, it's going to be good. Then, the curvature, the quality curvature kind of drops. It kind of drops there at the end of Season 1 and the beginning of Season 2. There's good episodes there, don't get me wrong. But, it does, the first 20 episodes or so of the second season, it's really rough going in. You have the exceptions like Cat and the Spider, Fisto's Forest, which I reviewed long ago, and you could say maybe The Origin of the Sorceress. That's another episode I haven't reviewed yet. Trouble in Trolla is another good one, Betrayal of Stratos. But it does take a while before those episodes really peak. I think what Rainbow Warrior, I think, is where we peak, and then we're at a kind of a good level, riding off into the finale of the series. So, this is a bit confusing for me because I actually, I have the European DVDs for the first season of He-Man, but I have the American box set for the second season. And I know some people are really confused now because I made that joke in one of the He-Man videos where I talked about, I wonder where they put Rainbow Warrior, when I was talking about, the continuity of the series. And fully realizing the irony there that, of course, I have it. So, I know it's not anywhere near where, logistically, continuity-wise, it wouldn't make any kind of sense. Okay, so I reviewed 5 He-Man episodes in a 10-minute video, roughly. So that means every episode review was only about 2 minutes. Actually, for the Remedy, it was well under 2 minutes. because that's the way I planned it. Like, I knew one of these episodes was going to get the shaft, and I decided the remedy was going to be it, because there really wasn't a lot to talk about. But that's the kind of irony, and that's the sad. I'm actually kind of sad that these episodes aren't excellent or better, because I feel what was going on, getting to the end of the 65 episode run of the first season. I think what was kind of happening at this point, and it's very, very obvious, is that I think the episode directors were kind of getting burnt out. So you had, because you do have like really good, experienced episode directors. Steve Clark, Ed Friedman, Lou Zucker, Bill Reed, Ernie Schmidt. These are names that you will find at the beginning of almost every He-Man episode. But you can clearly tell that they were kind of burned out at this point, because you can see so much stock footage usage, so much character model recycling. It's like, they decided, let's just put this together and get these last episodes out of here and get rid of it. Because the writing in these episodes was is still like, I love it. I personally like the episode writing, and that's why it's kind of sad, because we have probably, I think, the best episodes from the Schultzes, Ron and Sam Schultz, who never wrote separately, always together. And their episodes usually aren't very good, and I feel kind of bad that their best episode, The Remedy, just kind of didn't amount to much, because the episode director didn't give a shit. Larry DiTillio wrote The Huntsman, and I will say, I'm willing to go on record here to say that almost any episode that Larry DiTillio wrote is gonna be great. Larry DiTillio is my favorite. He was the head staff writer basically for the entirety of He-Man, and his contributions. He needs no introduction. He directed one episode, actually, which is kind of interesting. He directed The Time Corridor, which proves that he was a much better writer than he was episode director. So yeah, and I'm trying to look over this a little bit, And of course, Larry DiTillio, because he wrote so many episodes, of course he has a few weaker ones in the mix. He wrote all of the Granomir episodes, including Disappearing Dragons, which I think is the worst of the Granomir episodes. But not a whole lot. Not a whole lot. There's not much in the sense of like bad Larry DiTillio episodes. He also wrote the episode Happy Birthday Roboto, which I have to get around to reviewing at some point. Okay. And Paul Dini, of course, his writing speaks for itself. I do think Paul Dini isn't like the most flawless episode writer. He is a great episode writer, but he does have his weaknesses. Then we have David Wise's contributions. I'm not sure if he was the main writer for any of these, but he has like credits for Heart of the Giant and Golden Discs of Knowledge. John Berwick is I think. Maybe I'm getting confused. I'm looking at the Wikipedia entries, and they're not dividing who wrote the actual script and who wrote the teleplay, which are two different things, because who wrote the script obviously wrote the story. And then Robbie London, of course, is there as well, who is kind of an amazingly, also a He-Man writer with an amazing body of work, except that he was also responsible for The Royal Cousin. But I'm willing to say that was the episode director's. No. I can't defend it, Jeremy is just so bad. Jeremy is just too bad. Even the episode director is partly at fault for that episode, but not entirely. Okay. So, but the thing you can see here is that whereas the writing was finally kind of peaking, where the writers all kind of knew what the hell they were doing, the episode directors were just pooped, and as a result, we got... The problem is that all the story premises for these episodes are excellent. The execution is not. So, Pawns of the Game Master, that could have been a good episode, but the main villain is just so boring. I didn't even show a voice clip of him, but it's just Alan Oppenheimer doing kind of a very generic, low voice. It's not a bad performance, but it's not at all memorable. That's the problem. And I kind of wish I would have shown a little bit more of the final battle. There's a very nice moment in there where Adam is having to fight this big monster all by himself. But again, like I said, the action direction just not very good in this one. The Golden Disc of Knowledge, that was a really, really good episode from the story point of view. And again, I want to stress, I do want to stress that the only bad thing about it, in my view, were the action scenes at Snake Mountain. The fact that they recycled that snake that we've seen so many times. I hate that because they try to build it up as such a momentous occasion. And actually, this is like the second episode that tries to explain why Snake Mountain is called Snake Mountain. I'm willing to give this episode a little bit more credence on this, because they say in the episode that Skeletor used the knowledge he gained from the Golden Discs of Knowledge to build Snake Mountain, which is interesting. Because I've always kind of assumed that Snake Mountain was a pre-existing feature and Skeletor just moved in out of convenience. But there's also that part I didn't show it in the Region of Ice review, because in the Region of Ice, he also says, now you'll see why it's called Snake Mountain. He tries to close the mouth of the snake, which I think is the only time that's ever happened. Skeletor closing the mouth of the snake, meaning in this case I'm talking about the rock formation that on top of the Snake Mountain. So, lots of great ideas. Terrible, the production, unfortunately, not so good. And I'll refrain from saying anything about the ending, because the ending of the Golden Disc of Knowledge is actually another really good redeeming quality. So I'd say the Golden Disc of Knowledge is easily the second best of these episodes overall, even with those weak action sequences. Now, the Huntsman, the reason I've kind of put off doing the Huntsman is the fact that there's another episode where they actually recycled Baron Grodd's character model. I don't remember precisely the episode. It's either in season 1 or 2. And if it was in season 1, then of course it means that this episode recycled that character model. Yeah. The problem is that the Huntsman is the fact that one of the big problems is that it is such a good episode that there's really not much worth talking about it. There's a lot of incidental little things about it, like I like how Adam. I do like how Adam acts very princely. He actually uses his position as a prince once in the episode plot, and I wish I could have had a bit more time to maybe talk about that incidental moment, but it really would have slowed down the review as a whole. But it's always the problem with these, and I am still kind of skittish about doing the short He-Man reviews. Maybe the next one I'll do a shorter review video where I just look at a single episode, because I was so worried about the Region of Ice as well that I just kept writing more jokes into it. Because I'm so self-conscious about that. But that's kind of the problem with, bad episodes are easy to write He-Man scripts out of because there's so much to point out and so much to talk about. With The Huntsman, which is a really good episode, but there's not a whole lot to it. You don't even see the unicorn that often. That's kind of one of the biggest surprises. We just assume that they let it go at the end, basically, when you don't even see the moment where it gets released, which is kind of funny. And the Remedy is interesting because I think the characters in it are interesting. I'm actually disappointed that Rohad doesn't come back in a later episode, that Nitro doesn't come back. The lore is rich in this episode, but unfortunately nothing about it actually gets referenced in future episodes. And there's also that little moment in the cave where He-Man finds the cure, which is the big stick. Because that would have also been interesting to talk about. But like I said, one of these episodes had to get the shaft on this one. And the Heart of a Giant. Okay, the Heart of a Giant, like I said, the really bad main villain. It's episodes like The Remedy, I actually appreciate the fact that there is no bad guy. It's not like there's some insidious plot by Skeletor to poison Rohad. It's just a coincidence and He-Man has to go off on an adventure by himself. But that's kind of the problem, is that they put so much of the episode, so much of the episode takes place in the wilderness with He-Man running around when the Wind Raider gets bogged down. But that's the point at which you kind of start to realize, oh no, they're gonna just recycle every fucking piece of action animation that they can. I did get to show one of my favorite clips of that by the way, was when He-Man was running. It's the second. I think it's the second time we've displayed He-Man's super speed. Another episode was the Return of the Griffin, and then again in in the problem with power when He-Man runs away from the explosion. So a not very often seen superpower that He-Man has is his super speed, and I don't know. Maybe he needs to build up momentum. Maybe that's the thing. That's why we don't see it as often. I'm making up lore rules that don't apply. Sorry. Okay, but yeah. Like there is a little bit I could have delved into a bit more deeply. I was wondering if people would be interested to see, well, maybe this is the moment I can do it. Like the Heart of a Giant, that's the other thing, is like I really like the story premise of this one. And so I'm happy that in Monster of the Mountain, we basically get the same premise, but again, removing the bad guy from it. Because this is why Monster of the Mountain is such a good episode. It doesn't have a villain, it doesn't have a bad guy. Sometimes the He-Man episodes, which are the best, are the ones where there is no Skeletor, where there's no bad guy. Because if you can't do a proper bad guy, you shouldn't do a bad guy at all. You should not bother with it, because it actually, the episode is actually better if you don't do it. And that's the way I felt about Heart of the Giant. The big problem I have is that the carnival owner is such a pathetic dweeb, just not a very interesting character at all. So that's why I have a bit of a problem with it. And also, and then the fact that all the characters in his fucking menagerie, or his fucking freak show that he's trying to put up, all of them are recycled from older episodes, and that is, I should say I'm impressed with the breadth, with the width, the size of the collection of monsters and creatures we see in this episode, because, they really dug up through the archives. But, like, the one thing that I really, really, really hated, there was the annoying, screechy-voiced guy from, oh god, now I'm forgetting the episode names. Ugh. It wasn't the Redemption, it was called The Defection, that's it, yeah. There's the evil gargoyle guy from The Defection, then there's the Tick and Talk, and then the evil wizard Zalt, who's the four-armed guy, and Tick and Talk was the two-headed guy. It's the characters from the same episode being recycled from, yes, Orko's Missing Magic. Oh dear, so... Yes, and then we have the Ice Beast, he's been in a couple of episodes. I'm trying to remember what was the first one. It wasn't in Teela's Quest. Those were the Shadow Beasts. I'm surprised there wasn't a Shadow Beast in it. What the hell? Like, even Beastman's Menagerie had, the Beastly Sideshow had a Shadow Beast. That's an actual Eternian creature. Why couldn't they have it there? But they did have a Fishman from Teela's Quest. That's what I'm thinking of. And they did, yes, they had one of the creatures. Okay, this is so funny. Yeah, the sea monster that Merman awakens with the pearl, the Crimson Pearl, in that episode. He's one of the creatures there as well. I don't remember. There's that anteater-looking guy. I don't remember what episode he's from. I do know he's from another episode. But then there's also, again, there's the elephant-nosed guy from the Reign of the Monsters, so that one I always recognize, and he was also in One for All, or All for One. I keep forgetting which is actually the name of the episode, which is the Season 2 episode where they used it as the tracker. I mean, the Space Pirates used him as the tracker creature. And was that all? Well, that might not be all of them, but those are the most of them. But like I said, that's the thing. It feels so cheap that they recycled those characters. And actually, there's a very similar moment. I wish I would have actually remembered to do it, because at the end of the Pawns of the Game Master, all of the other gladiators that the Pawn Master has, they get sent back to their own dimensions by the Sorceress. And there's an almost exactly there's almost an identical moment from the Heart of a Giant, where all those poor creatures that the evil carnival owner was capturing, when they get sent back to where they came from. So that maybe that's something that I should have given a little bit more, or maybe that's an idea for maybe I should do a video on that and actually locate where all of those characters came from originally, because it's quite interesting. At least I think so. Maybe you don't. So Is there something I forgot to talk about? Not much else. I mean, that's basically what I was trying to do. So I had a bunch of singular episodes that I was thinking of reviewing. Couldn't come up with a good way to bring about it. And I was also, it worked well to establish this video where I was talking about the general kind of dip of quality of episodes at the end of season 1 and beginning of season 2. Now, will I be making more reviews on the episodes from the beginning of season 2? Yes. I'm not saying at all that I don't plan on doing those. And that's actually the Region of Ice. That's another kind of later season 1 episode. That's one that I've been meaning to get around to. And there is a lot. There's still a lot from the beginning of season 2 that I haven't covered and I should get around to, because Into the Abyss is like one really big one. It's not, and I might have mentioned this, but if I didn't, I might as well mention it now. That my goal has never been to review every He-Man episode that's out there, but I want to review at least a lot of them. So I don't know. Is there anything else worth mentioning? I'm wondering if there's any new news on the He-Man movie. The last I heard, it was coming in 2019. So let's check. The annoying thing about that new Masters of the Universe movie project is that they keep announcing that they have a screenwriter, or they might have a director set. And now they've made this promise that I hate to be such a downer or such a negative Nancy, but I am, or such a cynical guy. But I really, I'm not super optimistic when they announce these things so well in advance, especially because McGee he was attached to that project for so long. He did a pretty in-depth interview talking about his plan for the He-Man movie, and then he dropped out, and that kind of like, my heart sunk immediately. Like, oh man, that was probably it. But no, Sony apparently insists that the movie is coming in December of 2018. They actually have a date, December 18th. Yeah, sure, Sony. We'll see. Sony's also working on the Sonic the Hedgehog movie at this very moment, so I don't know, Sony, you can promise us the heavens, but I am still going to be super skeptical and cynical about this stuff, because they have not been giving any indication on when they're even going to shoot this thing, I'll believe you when you tell me when the cameras are actually going to be rolling, okay? So I guess that wraps it up. I hope people found that interesting. Once again, me muttering on about He-Man. I thought it was interesting. I don't know about you. So hey, keep those questions coming. We hope to do a proper White Devil podcast later this year. I've just been very busy right now. But again, you can hear my voice also on some of the videos on Retro Kaiser's channel. Oh, and also Schmucktober's going on Retro Kaiser's channel. You should check that out. A new video's coming out every day. They've been really good. I've liked every single one of them. And shameless plug right there. So thank you for listening. I have the power, so can you.